Welcome back to our traffic reports. And today we're going to be looking at, you'll see it linked in the description, but there's a PBS article that came out talking about a Blaccent and how there is this phenomenon that seems to be taking off, but really has always been there, where people will utilize portions of black culture or speaking like they are from the ghetto in order to make a name, in order to come forward, in order to be fly and hip and in, until they get them big bucks and it starts to become less profitable for them, or it starts to become a risk for them, and then they switch it all up and leave the black people that they took that culture from in the dust, man. So today we're going to be talking about a little bit of cultural appropriation.
Yeah, and you know what? This is something that's going on, man, and the video goes very well into Elvis Presley. You can look at it, and it's even, and here's the deal. I'm not a fan at all of Beyonce. But people are up in arms around her releasing a country album because they're saying that she's not country. And I'm like, what makes it not country? And really, we know why they say it's not country.
There's only one place that black people should cross over, and that's on the court.
And the deal is, if you look at country music, though, country music has never, like, if you go back to its roots, it wasn't just a majority dominant thing. It was all cultures that fed into it. And so Elvis Presley, same thing, blues and different things of that nature.
Yep,
those things, rock and roll, all those things played into it. There's a culture element to it. For me, in my lifetime, I go to things like the Super Bowl with Justin Timberlake and Janet Jackson and that performance. And leading up to that time, you know, Justin had left NSYNC and he had got with Timberland. And he's doing all the popping and everything else, and he's dating Janet Jackson, you know, one of the baddest at that time. And then they do the Super Bowl deal. It all goes awry. He was a part of it. Then all of a sudden, he goes to being from Tennessee, Man in the Woods.
Man in the Woods.
He just drops it because it was no longer beneficial. He used that to cross over into an audience, but then when it was no longer beneficial, he dropped it. Then you go to things like J-Lo, you know, she came up as a fly girl. She was Jenny from the block. She had this coach. She had those different elements, and you use that to cross over, right? And then she was in a club with a popular rapper that she was dating at the time. I ain't gonna even say his name, but it has been trademarked. Him. And so then all of a sudden she went deeper in her Latino roots, kind of moved away from that. And so we see that where it seems like when African Americans do it, and they draw upon some of those cultural elements, and we use the term code switch, and it's looked upon as a bad thing, and it's looked upon as a negative thing, and we should be higher and more educated. But then when those outside the culture get a hold of it, it's like everybody can profit from our culture.
Except for us.
For us. Man, you think about, even right now, right? Right now you go to a fancy restaurant and they're serving oxtails for outrageous prices, when you used to be able to get oxtails for nothing. Briskets used to be throwaway pieces of meat, right? All those things like that that we took. And so how do we deal with this, where something that we don't have to modify or spend a lot of energy to draw upon because it's our lived experience, is a negative thing for us, but for everyone else it becomes something to profit from?
And it is a difficult thing to navigate. And I think the first thing that I want to speak to, and this is just kind of how my life has been codified in growing up in Kansas in majority white spaces. I always want to speak to the defense first, because I just know there's a lot of people that I grew up with that I love and care about who are going, I don't even believe cultural appropriation is a thing. Shouldn't we all be in the melting pot? Shouldn't we all be sharing of culture? And you're right. But matter of fact, I just heard a great sermon from a friend of mine about the diversity of the body and how that is important, how God uses that. And it's important that we share culture together. The problem is when there's a double standard, when we utilize that culture as a stepping stone to gain things for ourselves, but we don't actually want to identify with the people. Kendrick Lamar dropped an album called To Pimp a Butterfly, where he talked about this same exact concept, where it's like, oh, you love the rap music, you want to see the caterpillar become a butterfly because it's beautiful, and you just want to use that, but you hate the caterpillar. Like you hate the struggle, you hate the things that birthed this culture. You hate the things that we're trying to work through to work things out. But all of the results of this culture, all of the side effects, you want to harness in order to give yourself the super serum to fame.
Can I like so? Here's one of the most annoying things, like, to me in the world. I got a list of them. And here's so once upon a time, this thing called sea walking became popular.
Oh.
When you had all these little kids from the suburbs that had no idea what sea walking was.
Stands here.
School teachers. Thinking this, and I'm like, hold up, fam.
It's
all my
Fortnite.
life I was growing up
It's all the Fortnite
saying,
dances now.
don't
Yep.
do drugs, say no to violence, and all this stuff. And you don't understand what this draws upon, but you think it makes you look cool. And so now you're doing it and you're applying this. Bow Wow, at this point, he was no longer Lil Bow Wow.
He just Bow Wow.
He was just Bow Wow now.
Shad Moss.
And so at some point, he needs to transition to using his real name.
Shad Moss.
I ain't walking around calling no grown man Bow Wow. But he started doing this thing, this dap. So you had all these kids doing dap, not understanding where this came from. You had all these kids. I remember being a youth pastor, and this watch me roll, and not understand what Superman
Soldier Boy, yeah.
was, and I'm like, hey, and I'm like, no, we can't be doing
That's solo. No, none of that.
No, because y'all don't understand where this thing is coming from, and for you, it's this thing of it benefits you, it makes you look cool because you can do this dance, and you pick up these things,
Yeah.
without knowing the tie to it, and all the rest of your talk, and all the rest of your life, and all the rest of your messages are demifying the culture and different things that this came from. But the pieces in which it's like a buffet line.
Yeah, and there's this lack of cultural awareness because there's a lack of proximity. When I was in high school, I went to Topeka West. At that time, Topeka West was just like America. It had 13% black people, and so I was there. I was one of the 13%, and I was made very much aware of that. And we hit Spirit Week, and at this time, Facebook's blowing up. It's like 2007. All of the seniors went on Facebook and changed one of the days of Spirit Week. It was supposed to be like 80s Day or something like that. They changed it to Gangster Day. So on Gangster Day, we all come to school, and all the white people at the school are wearing gym shorts, tall tees, fake grills, chains, and flat-brimmed hats. And I'm walking around in my tall tee, I ain't wearing a grill, but I'm there. Everybody's dressing like me now. All these people who thought I was weird, who wouldn't interact with me in class, are now dressed like me for Gangster Day. And I was like, what is going on? Let me tell you, all the black people at Topeka West walked. I was one of the only black, because I was a mentor, so I had to stay there to talk to the freshmen. I was one of the only black upperclassmen on campus, because they walked out, and all these white teachers, I don't understand what the problem is.
Brail, come on, man. Kids can be cruel. They were just kids. So let me give you an example of adults. So I was a pastor in Texas, and we were Texas. So at this time, concealed carry had started gaining popularity. I had a dead raccoon placed in my yard. I had been refused service. There's just the nature of kind of where we're at. I had the dead raccoon placed in my yard after I married my white wife. And so we had some incidents happen. So I was going to conceal carry. And so we kind of did this promotional thing. One, we had a class for the females, but then we had a class for the males, and we were going to do this thing where it's going to kind of be this bonding. We're going to go through this class together. We're going to be able to go out and just have fun shooting or whatever else, right? And this was different for me because I grew up around a lot of gunplay stuff in my neighborhood. So I wasn't big into firearms. When I married my wife, her family were bigger into firearms. And so I went hunting with her dad for the first time in my life. Turkey hunting, I shot a turkey like, I believe like 12 times with a 12 gauge. That's a whole nother story. So I actually reloaded and kept shooting the turkey. That's a whole nother story. Take that. And
No
so
turkey though. No turkey though.
no turkey.
Ooh.
No giblets. And so we were going to take this class. And as we were going through this class, I am the lead pastor, and I'm in here with all guys from my church. And I know the instructor. And we were going through this class, and every time we had a class, he would describe these thugs that you needed to be prepared to defend yourself against. And every time he described what a thug was, he described me.
The thugs.
And I kept like trying to overlook this, right? At this point, Braille, I have a chemical engineering degree. I have a master's in theology. Or a master's of education, in Christian education. I have, some certificates behind my name. I got all these different things. And I'm in this class, and every time a thug is described, I mean, they could have held a mirror up next to me, man, and it was like, describing me.
They may be wearing, what are those?
But here's the deal.
Felines.
No one recognized it. Until the last session, and I said, hey, has anybody recognized that every time he described who a thug was, he described me? And now, where I grew up at, I'm the bookiest nerd of the bunch. Like, I was the one that played sports and did academics, that stayed out of trouble. But I'm the one that's being...
You fit the description.
Of the thug.
Man, I want to tell people how convoluted this gets. And then we can get to... Some of y'all are like, okay, if this is the reality, what can we do? And I want to get to that. But I want to show people how convoluted this gets. And they talk about it in that article. I definitely recommend y'all watch it. It's like 9 minutes. It's really good. It's this PBS video. But Black culture and blackness becomes a caricature. And it becomes a caricature that not only white people put on, but black people put on as well. Because it's often how they're expected to be. It's put upon you as you fit the role of this character. And so people don't recognize a slight being done to a person because they weren't describing a person. They were describing a character. And you start to see these things map out and play out, and people start to live up to your expectations, even if they don't live up to your expectations. And you get this thing even in the black community where code switching is necessary. Even for me, when I was growing up, I remember sitting in my aunt's kitchen, and my mom was forcing me to count to 10 correctly. I was like, "What do you mean?" She was like, "No, you're gonna speak right." Because at school, a lot of my friends that were from the same neighborhood as me, they all spoke with a certain dialect. And so I wanted to speak like my friends. And so I started copying my friends. I was like, one. She said, what? I said, one. Well, how many letters in one? Spell it. O-N-E. One. And you say one, and 7 was the one that always got me. 7. She was like, ain't no 7. But it became this thing where she was like, if I can get you to speak a certain way, then you may have some advantages that I didn't have. And it became to where, okay, so mama taught me to do this. And so I utilized that. But then when I get to school, guess what? I'm not black. I'm not black enough. And so you find yourself in this catch-22 where your life has been codified into this character. And whenever you break character, you lose. And if you act in character and try to step into spaces where you should be able to win, you lose. And now you find yourself playing this RPG where you're constantly trying to switch classes everywhere you go, and you walk into a room going, who do I need to be today?
So I remember being a kid and hearing adults speak to me about which of them could sound non-black on the phone to get them further in life. And also about having the conversations of what do you name your kid so you don't put them at a hindrance when their name is seen on
an
a piece of
application.
on an application or a piece of paper.
Which is a real. There are studies that show this
Yep.
is very real.
Same thing like with selling houses and stuff like that. The studies like continue to come out, and so it's one of those deals though. When you look at culture and influencers and different things of that nature, right? You look at some of the beauty stuff of what some of the people are artificially doing, and trying to match that. It's just one of those deals where it's something that we need to look deeper at.
Yeah.
And like you said, the danger is once I heard this illustration, and it messed me up. It said a chameleon, it changes colors to defend itself, but every time it changes colors, it shortens its lifespan. And some of us are killing ourselves because we're steady changing to fit the environment we in rather than being who we are. That's why I love things like the Crown Act that try to protect women in their natural hairstyles because there's different things that come with perming your hair and different things of that nature. And so them being able to wear those natural styles. And I can remember being on the job and having that first African-American female coworker come in and be like, okay, I'm cutting it down and I'm going natural. And everybody's like, we're about to see how this goes.
We're going to see.
Right? And just seeing it, and I love things like that where getting braids on vacation when you go to the Caribbean may seem like this novel thing. There's also some things that come with that, man. And so no one likes to be the punchline. And I think sometimes that's how it can come across. And sometimes, like, there's some genuine efforts to, like, man, I want to see how you fit in. I have a white wife and I have a black daughter. And my black daughter, because that's the mom she knows, want to see if they can do their hair the same, right? And it's like, hey, your hair just not going to do some things. And there's sometimes when they can do kind of similar, right? And my daughter loves it, right? And my daughter's requesting this. And my wife is always kind of touching like, man, I don't want to get smoke from somebody out because I'm bonding with my daughter, right? And it's not like that. But the concern is there. Also, last year or year before, my kids' school wrote home saying, hey, for the Black History program, we're going to have all the kids dressed like slaves. And then my wife was like, no. And my wife was like, really? Hey, I'm not sending my kid out being a white mom with 3 black children dressed like slaves. And we were like, hey, we feel like there's another way of teaching them Black history, and so we're gonna need some more context. And so we had to have a meeting and we had to talk through because we were like, nah, like the last thing we need is some pictures circulating like, I can't believe that white woman is dressing her little black kids like slaves.
No.
And so there's this real awareness that come around these things.
And that's part of what we have to do. No matter where we're at, we have to live in that tension. And we can create spaces where it's safe to live in the tension. You cannot do it all right all the time. There's going to be some times where you overstep, where you step wrong, or where you grow and learn some different things. There's some different pieces of the culture that I adapted and I adopted that later on I was like, that wasn't wise. Like that wasn't being unapologetically black. That was just ignorant. And there were some things that I had to learn and grow from, but having spaces where you can explore culture and you can ask real questions. I don't want nobody petting my hair, but you get one. And then after I tell you, we out. We done with that. Right. But creating spaces where you can actually have those conversations and explore what that looks like in culture and like, man, is something that I'm doing hurting someone around me, or is there an advantage that I'm having that I need to speak to?
And here's the deal too. And while it's like there's some seriousness around this, I also feel like it's important to not make people around us walk on eggshells.
Exactly.
That's not a real relationship. And then 2, we have to keep laughing at ourselves. That's why movies like Don't Be a Menace were funny.
yeah,
And also, what's the Eddie Griffin joint?
Undercover Brother?
Undercover Brother.
That's my favorite movie. I love
So
it.
that was also funny, right?
It's
Just
hilarious.
like I laughed
Go
at
watch it
Taylor-
for research.
I also laugh at Talladega Nights, right?
Oh,
Because that's the other side of it,
Yes.
right? That's the other
Baby
side of this thing. You are not paralyzed.
Yes, I am.
And so,
Don't you put that evil on me, Ricky Bobby.
and so we got to be able to have that and have these deep conversations. I think that's important as we go on. The thing, though, that we should be asking ourselves is, as we do something, is this making a caricature of another culture? And if so, then I think there needs to be some adjustment and maybe even some apologies given.
Yeah, man, I completely agree. And we all have a role to play here in the intersection. So, man, we hope you enjoyed this episode. Like, comment, subscribe, share, do all of the great social media things. And we'll see you next week in the intersection.